Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name's Michael Leboff, and licking their wounds alongside me for this episode, as always, are Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. Together, the three of us will handicap a 12-game NHL slate for Thursday night. It's been tough sledding. It's been unbelievable to watch some of the breaks. Thank you to the Ottawa Senators for registering 0 shots on goal on Tuesday night against the Predators in the third period. That was impressive. Nick is in a bad way with his favorite scorekeeper out there in San Jose. So a lot going on here, but guess what? Clean slate for Thursday night. We'll be in a much better mood if maybe we get a couple wins and especially a couple underdog wins. So let's start with our three favorites off the top of the show. And Nick, we got to hand it over to you because we've sworn off this team. Well, I mean, I've sworn off this team thousands and thousands of times in my life, but we've sworn off this team dozens of times in like the past couple weeks. And here we are, all three of us in agreement, backing the New York Islanders as a slight underdog on the road against the red hot Red Wings. Right now, the Islanders are plus 105, the Wings minus 125, total of 6. And that line right there tells you basically the entire story, Nick.
Yeah, this is one of these things. I mean, I'm in the worst downswing I've had in like my 3 years with Action. I could do this whole show on what I think are bad beats. I don't know if they are or not, or I just suck. Both are possible right now. But one of the things that I think is killing us is losing our conviction on takes, in part just because we think of the next game's number right right before they turn. Like I think this happened with the Blues recently. I think it's happened with a lot of different teams. Didn't I bet on the Islanders to go over their team total on Monday in Dallas? But I think if things were going better, I would have just had the conviction to play them straight up. I think probably would have been the same elsewise. So I want to go back to them here with Detroit. I don't want to miss it. I'm pretty sold still that Detroit is a luck box. I like what they've done offensively. I get that. Completely in agreement. I still think they have a lot of gettable guys in terms of their two-way play, though. And I think it's the right spot. We weren't quite there. I don't know if the way we had our take on the game versus the Caps, I wasn't quite there last time. They're playing basically the Hershey Bears back to back. So again, I think it's just one of these good things to compound their kind of recent win streak. I don't really think Detroit deserves to be this level of favorite. So the Islanders are still plus 105. I would play that and I would take it down to even money before I would stop. So hopefully some of those hold out. It's kind of been one-way traffic, I think, in terms of the sharp money. If you look at the way that every book's odds have moved on this game since they released, I think a lot of people are kind of counting on Detroit falling apart. And the Islanders, I still think they have some pretty clear edges over Detroit. I mean, it kind of depends on how you're going to grade Lyon moving forward. But I still look at the back end. I think they both have a lot of question marks. And I think Sorokin's a clear advantage for the Islanders moving forward. So you look at the even strength play. I think it's fair to say the Islanders are actually going to own more of the even strength play here. If they can keep the Detroit's power play in check, I think it's a good spot to target them. And I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see these teams heading opposite directions a little bit. It feels like the right time to sell on the Wings.
Oh boy. Yeah, nothing like a three-way agreement on the New York Islanders to get back on track. I wonder how many people just swiped up and force quit whatever podcast app they use. Because spoiler, the Islanders are going to be my best bet, and all the reasons Nick just outlined. Detroit, if you look, you can tip your cap and say it's been impressive, but wins over St. Louis, Chicago, Washington, not necessarily the top of the league. Go hand out the President's Trophy for that. Good job, Detroit Red Wings. A hell of a schedule there. Also, all of those teams, they were catching them in pretty bad spots. You're right. You said, Nick, Washington back-to-back. Pretty sure St. Louis over that weekend was a back-to-back when St. Louis laid an absolute egg. So finally, they get a team that isn't in a brutal schedule spot on the other side that could hopefully give them a real run for their money. As an underdog, it's just the right play, and it hasn't been going that way. But yeah, I think the Islanders are the right play here, Mike.
Yeah, it's really a shame. but they are. And yeah, it's you can look at a host of different things with the Red Wings to point to why we think that this is a little bit of a paper tiger situation. And we do have to give them credit for the way, like just posting 16-4-2 record over a 22 game sample. That's pretty good. Uh, all the credit in the world to them for doing that. But in that time period, like they're getting outshot by almost 100 shots. Their PDO, which is your save percentage and shooting percentage, is hovering around 104. And then if you look at their recent 6 game winning streak, I mean the numbers are even more extreme. And teams do this throughout a season. You know, you'll ride a bender. Their PDO is around 110%. Their shooting percentage is at like 16% over their last 16 games. Those numbers are going to come down. So I do think that the Islanders should be the better 5-on-5 team. I think that there's ways to play them, even if you don't want to bet the money line or if it moves too much. By the time you hear it, that top line of Nelson, Horvat, and Barzell is going to get a lot of the attention from betting perspective. And the numbers were really short on all three of them. Bookmakers, I think, saw that one coming against the Stars. So even against a team like Dallas, like they were still some pretty you had to pay a pretty hefty price. But the other way to attack it is to bet a couple of their offensive defensemen. I think that Noah Dobson and Mike Riley will pop to mind as good players to target because they'll likely see a lot of playing time or a lot of offensive zone starts with those three starting in good spots. So Isles, Riley, Dobson, those kind of guys for me are the bets I like. For my favorite underdog, gonna do it, boys. If the Islanders didn't make you quit the show, this team certainly will. The Arizona Coyotes, losers of 13 in a row, they're taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. This number is plus 205. I'm hopeful it gets even bigger. Leafs minus 250, a total of 6.5. There's a couple things I like here. One, Toronto's playing 6 lefties on D, and it looked terrible against the Knights. We'll see how the injury news shakes out, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna get better anytime soon. Maybe you see Liljegren, but it didn't sound hopeful there. It seemed to just stymie them. They looked like a mess in their own zone, especially like Riley and Brody looked pretty terrible, especially like most notably. And at some point, this Coyotes team, it's gonna come through. Like they played the game against the Canadiens aside, they played better than this. So I think this is a great buy low spot, a good sell high spot. And I don't even want to get into the fact that like the Coyotes have a lot of success against Toronto. I don't even want to go there. But what I do want to get into is just this Leafs team is banged up on the back end. And it's one of those injury cluster situations where the impact is much bigger than the individual name brand value that's out of the lineup. Like nobody's going to be like, oh my God, Timothy Liljegren's out of the lineup. This is a huge deal. But when you're taking a Paul blue line and throwing 6 lefties on it, it's a bit of an issue.
Liljegren's been really good.
Yeah, he
that
has.
was one of the things that really drove this win streak was how much he had picked up his play on the back end.
Yep. Yeah. So like, but I'm just saying like nobody's gonna bet a number because Timothy Liljegren's coming out of the lineup, right? But when he's coming out of a lineup to now make it 6 left-handers on defense, a little tricky. Plus, it could be a Joseph Woll start. I don't know if they've mentioned anything, and I actually want to go against him in his first game back. I know he played in Laval against an AHL team, looked sharp, but just those first NHL games back are for goalies who've been out a while are ones I want to target. So it'll be the Coyotes here for me, unfortunately, Tim.
People definitely think we're trolling, right? I mean, they have to. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. Lieboff, I think everything you said is definitely valid. I kind of lean towards possibly the over here. It's a rare situation where the Leafs might have a goaltending edge in a game because Coyotes goaltending has been such a mess for, even longer than this losing streak, basically since Ingram got hurt, and then he's come back and hasn't been great as well. So I possibly think that this could be a high scoring game. Talked about the Leafs being a bit depleted on the back end. Obviously the Leafs are full value to light up the scoreboard any game. So I will probably join you with a little taste on the Coyotes, and I'm going to decide in the next 24 hours if I'm going to be on this over, but that's where I lean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore with the Coyotes. Mike kind of threw them a little under the bus versus the Habs because that was maybe one of the best games. I don't know. I don't know if I'm not seeing things
It's
right
just
now.
it's more of any. It's just a frustration more than anything.
It
Like win that
it
game.
just
Just go
won't
win
go
that game.
right.
Win that
Yeah, and
game.
these are the ones where it gets a little confusing. Like I saw Mike Kelly posted that Montembeault had 2 saves above expected in that game. I thought that was very fair. NST, I'm looking at them right now. They have him at slightly over. They have him at 2.08 goals saved above expected. I think Kelly probably pulled that from Sportlogic's model. However you look at it, I think it was another.
And Nick, I'll just throw in 75% in the deserve to win o-meter in favor of the Coyotes as well for
Yeah,
what
I
it's
mean,
worth.
I thought it was pretty clear that they ran bad. They had more of the good chances on good player sticks too. And credit to Montembeault. I had considered this could happen to us, but he hasn't even been playing good lately. So I kind of thought it was like a possibility that whatever. So, anyways, he made for a good bobblehead night, which is great. I think the Coyotes are still due for better. I think that they have guys that can help cover the Keller loss. So I kind of want to do it too, but I'm not thrilled. It's just another one of these ones where I just feel like we're destined to feel like complete idiots if we keep going back to the well. But I do think their play is kind of showing that they're trending in the right direction. Like Tim said, though, when you can't buy a save and everything's going wrong, I'm just like, I don't know. Are we idiots? It's making me question my thoughts on the games right now. But they're
They've lost
just,
13 games in a row, and so they're like 5 shy of the record. And you look at the other 2 teams that are tied for that record, and they're abject, like terrible, terrible teams. This Coyote team is good. Like I think if you looked at the
Blink of an
numbers for
eye.
this, they're
and they've played the worst schedule in the league lately.
yeah.
But again, that point's harder to back when you're coming off of this Canadiens loss. But I think they could have fared better. I don't know. It's just, it's tough. Like, are you going to get a goal? Are you going to get like a save at the right moment?
I'd like it so much
Uh,
better if Toronto beat up on Vegas on Tuesday night, but
yeah, that's, I think, kind of a fair statement. I mean, the Wall game to me, too, is almost, I still think he's their best goalie and
Yeah.
you'd think they'd be ready to go. So don't love that. But
no, but Nick, it'd be so Leafs for the second he gets back to get like chased, and then they're like, "Is Sammy the guy? Is Matt
yeah, and
Murray
that,
the guy?"
I mean, the Coyotes are generating. I wouldn't hate like a team total. Like I do think we're at the like kind of nut bottom of the Coyotes play, but it's just getting harder and harder to pump that narrative up.
Yeah, we've been there for a week. Tim, we spent a lot of time on the Islanders and Coyotes. Maybe we'll bet a decent outfit now.
Yeah, how about the Winnipeg Jets? They are a road dog of plus 120 right now at the Dallas Stars. I know we've kind of put the kibosh on the Winnipeg Jets for, seems like over a month now, 2 months on this podcast, but this is more a play on Dallas's schedule spot. They just played 3-4 in a back-to-back at Colorado. I know that they got blown out in that game, so you're like, oh, they can rebound here at home against the Winnipeg Jets. But just if you just rewind a bit on Dallas, from February 22nd at Ottawa, then finish the road trip at Carolina, back home at Colorado, now back home again. I just think it's Dallas is a really good team. I think they're like very much so a contender to win the Stanley Cup. But when I see plus money on a dog that has Connor Hellebuck in net and a Dallas team that I think is just one of those parts in the schedule where you just can take a couple L's. I think it's that central division, the amount of travel there. I just think that this is kind of a really difficult spot for them. So put me on the Winnipeg Jets at a plus money price.
Yeah, I lean with you here, Tim. I mean, I agree. I don't know into the specifics of why it happened, but how does Dallas travel to Ottawa to play one game? Like they had 2 East Coast trips. That seems bizarre. They already have the worst schedule or the worst traveling schedule in the league every year. So, anyways, I lean with you. I think the Jets' defensive plays looked a little sharper lately. So I think when you're getting this kind of a number with Hellebuck, I lean there. I still love the Stars. I think they have potentially, if they pull the trigger on it, one of the easiest upgrades out of any team at the deadline if they just bring in a competent defender to play some of Suter's minutes. But who knows how I mean, they play Suter top 4. I don't think they need to. So we'll see. They're heavily rumored to Chris Tanev. I think that'd be a great fit for them if they'd use him in the top 4. So I like the Stars. I'm not mad at all that we were pumping up their tires and like cup out rate prices a month ago. But yeah, I agree. I think this is just one of those ones you kind of take your chance at getting well better than a coin flip price on the Jets.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it. I'll be on the Jets as well. So Islanders, Coyotes, and Jets as our three underdogs. Let's look at the big board up next. Big slate. Bruins and Knights, a potential Stanley Cup preview. Perhaps Vegas plus 136. The Bruins minus 162. A total here of 5.5. Boston now has gone to overtime as many times as the Islanders. So weird team, those Bruins. We kind of talked about this during their hot start that they weren't getting the separation and the margin needed to justify their prices most nights. We looked like fools because the Bruins just end up winning those games, or especially back then. But now it looks like they're reaping what they were sowing a bit. Total 5.5. I actually don't think that this is a terrible bet to go to overtime at all. Vegas without Stone and Eichel are gonna try to keep things as low event and tidy as possible. Boston's totally comfortable playing that style as well. I would also lean in that kind of environment. I'd also lean towards Vegas as well, but and this is a tough schedule spot for the Bruins here, Tim.
Yeah, it definitely is. I lean Knights here, and much like the Coyotes talk we were having, I would like it a lot better if Toronto had just beaten Vegas and we could really get the bottom of the market on Vegas. But you look at this Boston team; it's a first game back from a Western swing. Pretty incredible that you look back and they had 5 points out of those 4 games. They beat Edmonton and then go overtime loss, overtime loss, overtime loss, or shootout as well in there. But I think it's really a concern too offensively. Pastrnak has 85 points. Second on the team is Marchand with 53. If Pastrnak doesn't do it for them, they really have a difficult time. Vegas makes life difficult for you. And when you talk about it being, a low total, 5.5, and both teams being perfectly fine playing that game, I can just see a lot of avenues at a plus money price that, Vegas can push this thing to overtime and a shootout and take their chances. So I don't know if I'll play it yet, but I think my gut instinct tells me Vegas here. I think Boston, if you look back, they've been prone to laying some eggs here in this season, especially as of late. This is a classic lay an egg type spot. So if you buy into any of that, this is kind of a difficult task for Boston here, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of in disagreement here. I think this is one where we see Boston kind of get right. I think that was a really tough Western Road swing. They weren't great, but they were competing. I still think what's left of the roster, it's not a great number. So it feels like one of these ones I'll sit here and say that and the Bruins will win to me, but I don't know. And then the thing for me is, and Shea Theodore really has come back and made a big difference, which I think is noteworthy. It helps alleviate the Stone loss. I get that he's a defender as well, but I'm just in terms of pure roster power right now. But the thing is, I don't think it's been talked about enough how bad Vegas has been. And I know that Toronto win, kind of answered a lot of questions, but they have been kind of one of the teams that we've been fading successfully, like dating back to mid-December, even with that Toronto win. And this has been about exactly a third of the schedule. They're below NHL 500. So, and their underlying results are really bad. So it's not like this is just like a team that's going to turn it on with that, or that is like worthy of, I feel like expecting them to turn it on is just because of who they are, I should say. And I think that's fair, but I don't know. I can at least see this number because I think the Knights really have kind of struggled legitimately. They answered the bell a little bit there with that Leafs game, but it feels like it's been a lot more of the opposite than anything else for me.
Okay, let's travel to Sunrise, Florida, where the Panthers
Wait,
are
leave
minus.
off, break the tie. Where do you lean?
Oh, with the Bruins game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said I would lean towards the Knights because I just think
Oh,
this is going to be it's more of like a handicap on how this game I think plays out, which is very, very sleepy, scrappy, ugly, and in that situation, I'd always kind of veer towards the underdog.
Yeah, that was an important note there too, because I meant to throw in some of our followers might have seen me log the under 6, and I like that play, but I don't know. I don't think any 6s will be out there tomorrow. I still even 5.5 I'd probably do if you could get plus 115.
Okay, am I good to go to Sunrise, Florida now, Tim?
I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I
I
I
appreciate
like
it.
your input, come on.
Well, it was there, and now it'll be there for Habs and Panthers. I do think, we talk a lot about teams that like we just don't have a handle for at all. And I think on shows like this, like you want to be like you want to always lean towards the more self-deprecating than just pumping your own tires, because then you come off very much like those 1980s 90s touts, and nobody wants to listen to that stuff. So I do think we beat ourselves up an appropriate amount, but we rarely will say that um, when we get things right. And one thing we've gotten right, and I was thinking about this last night, I feel like I have had the Florida Panthers pegged from like the sixth game of the season on. Like this is a team that we identified very early, even when they were scrapping without Ekblad and Montour, and people were expecting them to just be too beat up from the Stanley Cup final. Uh, we saw them come out of the gates gangbusters and said, get involved with this team and stay involved. And that's why they're a huge favorite here against the Habs. It's not a number I'm going to lay. Uh, but I do think that this Florida team is one that we've always had a good feeling for, and I don't want to go against them here. And Nick, I think what you were looking at, it popped into my mind as well. This looks like one-way traffic. It could be Sam Montembeault standing on his head against his former team. Uh, you like the save prop to go over, and I think it's also one to look at like 40 plus or 45 plus saves as well.
Yeah, I think that's the one to keep your eye on. I mean, it's obvious enough that you don't know where the number will open. If it's 30.5, I'll play it, but which is high, right? 31.5s are pretty rare. 32.5s are quite rare. But if you got 30.5, I would just definitely lock that in right away and play with it. And yeah, I completely agree. The Panthers have been one of our best takes. I think same kind of thing right around December when they were in that offensive lull. It was a clear team that was due for positive regression on that front. And, we gave out President's Trophy. I feel good about that. I would almost like bet some of the plus 250s out there still on the President's Trophy. I really think they are the most well-rounded team. They're getting solid play from Stolars. And yeah, I think they're kind of one of few teams where you really can't poke many holes in their roster at all this season. So I like that. I think they're going to come out and roll Montreal here. It'll be a little disappointing because like if it's one of those spots where maybe they just actually score a lot of goals and run away with it. But I kind of want to follow up Montembeault's last start. But I would specifically only make this play with Montembeault in goal because I do think you want the extra upside of him making saves. And like we always say with these save props, it's not so much that the goalie added the save added to his total from making one more save. It's that you keep it in a game script where the other team keeps pressing and shooting. Whereas if like it's 4-0 early, that hurts. But as I say that, I'm just laughing thinking about the Senators blowing up on us last night. I just can't even get that one out of my head.
Yeah, that one will make you question coming back to do a podcast the next day. That would I would say that was about as little of radio silent communication we've had in our group chat in a long time. Is no one wanted to go back to work the next day after that. With that said, you said that we've had this Florida team pegged pretty well, and thank you for the positivity, Lee Buff. Makes us feel good about ourselves for just a minute here. Look at you looking at the bright side. Never thought I would utter those words. But yeah, I like the under 6.5 here. If you can get 6.5, I still see a couple out there at the time of recording. If it's there by the time you're listening to it, awesome. I would take that under. Florida, it's crazy. 20 overs, 39 unders this season as a favorite. 16 overs, 31 unders. Think this is just, it's going to be hard for Montreal to generate much. See that with Florida being the favorite that they are. So if you're looking to play this game, I would say under. I already played the under 6.5 myself, and hopefully you can get one as well.
Wow, wonderful. I promise that'll be the first and only time I do something like that.
Yeah, I don't even know you anymore.
Made me feel a little sick. I just don't like seeing my guys down like that. It's one thing if it's me, but Wild and Preds up next. This one essentially a pick 'em. Minnesota minus 105. Predators are minus 115 at home. Total is 6. The Predators are undefeated since Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz grounded them and didn't let them go to see U2 at the Sphere. So they responded in kind with a rattling off a million wins in a row. Maybe they should both win, executive and coach of the year. I actually think, Brunette probably deserves a little more credit, but I've got nothing here. Nick is passing as well. Tim, what do you think?
For the record, I went to the Sphere a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I've won a bet since. So maybe Burnett was on to something. I
Yeah,
went to the
should have
Sphere,
listened to.
let my guard down. Sure
Listen,
enough,
when you see Barry Trotz do something and kind of give some advice, you should listen to it. That's something I learned and Nick has learned over the time of him coaching our teams.
I was listening to podcasts and radio shows talk about the Sphere thing as I was flying home from Vegas, having just been at the Sphere. So that made me feel pretty bad about myself. I lean the Predators here because of the schedule spot for Mini. It's kind of sneaky brutal. As I pull it up here, good radio as I make sure I double check my notes. I write it down, then don't trust my notes. So then I check it one more time. So Minnesota they went on that Western swing, ended at Seattle, and then home against Carolina, and now to Nashville. So working their way cross country here. When it first opened, I thought I was going to be betting Minnesota because I really like them as a feisty team. We've said a bunch of times that we probably like them the most out of this group in the West that's hovering around the wild card spot. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it, although I do lean Nashville here because of that spot. Again, the Central Division. Nashville just played at home in Ottawa. And while they didn't have time to unpack their suitcases from the Western swing, gotta throw it in the wash, pack it right back up and on the road again against some Nashville team that has been super, super feisty.
Yeah, I thought this game looked fair. The one that I'll probably circle with the Wild that I'd rather play is the game in St. Louis on Saturday. I think that's the one where probably get a preferred spot to try and target them.
I don't think there's too much we want to say about this next one either. The Avalanche are a -290 favorite in Chicago. Hawks +235, total here of 6. It looks like a pass across the board, Nick, but anything that you want to
No,
share?
I kind of had pure pass here. I think like you can always say for a lot of NHL teams, it's never as bad as it looks when things are at their worst and things are going against you. And you're never as good as you are when everything breaks your way, just like Detroit right now with your PDO. And I think that take's been proven right by a lot of teams right now. So I kind of feel like the bottom's there for Chicago. I'll be a little grumpy if they win, but I don't know if it's quite the spot. I think it's just appropriately priced.
Yeah.
If you're betting the Blackhawks, man, God bless you. I'll reach through the speakers here and give you a kiss. That's incredible. Good for
They
you.
just can't find a way. Like
I know
the
it
Winnipeg
takes.
game and the Detroit game, it just takes so much. And
I
now you
don't
talk about the Avs, it's just
I don't know
wonder.
when the Coyotes are playing if they play the Blackhawks. Oh, they do. It's perfect. 3 games from now. So next Tuesday, we got Blackhawks and Coyotes. So
Wouldn't miss it
if
for the
that's
world.
the game that ends the streak for Arizona, I'm done, I think. Like, give us a win before that, please. I want to win some of the money back.
One more thing. Imagine if you put just McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen on the Blackhawks. I feel like it's the same Avalanche roster. Like it's like what the Avalanche are dealing with in terms of depth, right? It'd be kind of funny. Like they could use Beauvillier, right? They could use Dickinson.
you know what'll happen in that game, Mike, is the Hawks are back to back and Arizona will be like -190 and we'll
That's
just
what I'm saying.
Uh,
It's gonna be brutal. So we need these stretches to come to an end before we get there. Hopefully. Kings, Canucks, Los Angeles +120, Vancouver -142, and the total is 6. I'm kicking myself for not betting that Penguins money line the other night. I thought my process was right, that the Penguins were banged up. Brian Rust didn't even make the trip. The Canucks have looked like they had some jump back in the game. I thought Vancouver played all right, and then Rickard Rakell scores a couple goals, including one off an egregious turnover, and those are the breaks that you look for as an underdog. And I was just a little pissed off that I didn't bet that one. I think that might be part of the reason I like Los Angeles here, because even without Kempe, I think that the Kings and the Canucks are not all that far apart. The goaltending edge is severe, which is the scary thing here. But I would much rather play Los Angeles than Vancouver at these prices, Nick.
Yeah, I thought the prices on sides looked appropriate to me. I like the under, even at 6. There were 6.5s out there, but at 6, I would still play it at -115. I think that it's obviously scary because it's just been surprising that Rittich is even this good, or whether it's him or Talbot right now, whatever. It is what it is. But I still think the Kings right now are kind of going to trend towards being a pure under team. They're still a really good defensive side. We've probably even not seen their best on that front, I think, so far. So they should really help to insulate their goalies. We know what Talcott wants out of his team kind of in the bigger moments. I think we're going to see kind of something like that Bruins game here. So for me, I think it's a good time. We're starting to see games kind of tighten up. I think we'll see both teams tighten up on that front. You mentioned how Kempe's out of the lineup for the Kings. Their goal scoring upside starting to look a little lacking with Arvidsson back out of the mix too. Kopitar isn't scoring. They got some other big names, and I know his Kopitar's biggest thing's not his goal scoring upside, but he is still a top liner who's just out there really being useful because of his defensive assets. So I think this kind of sets up as a good spot. It's a little scary because the Canucks have been giving up more, and like I said, with the Kings goalies, we don't know what we're going to get, but I think you got to go against that. I think this is just two teams that want to, at their best, be good defensive sides, and that we'll see those strengths shine through in this game.
Yeah, I can get to an agreement with you there, Nick, on the underside of things. Lieboff, you mentioned that they're not that far off, these two teams, and then you said, well, the goaltending. That's why this price is what it is, in my opinion. It is. I think the goaltending aspect is that important, and I cannot back the LA Kings with the goaltending situation. It is like when we're joking, we're in a little bit of some bad luck here. I'm not knocking on the LA Kings door to help me find some good luck because I know it's going to come down to the goaltending, and I don't like the way it's trending. I have a bias because I have Stanley Cup futures on the Kings that I really like them, but God, do they scare the living daylights out of me with this goaltending.
Yeah, another one, Tim, is just classic, just finding a way to compound. This is what's just been making me so mad lately is how many goal scorers I've liked that score the next night. And if I had any conviction, I'd go back to them. But it's just like in this whole thing where it feels like, and that was Kevin Fiala after the Oilers game. And the next night he's dominant. And we even talked about how I thought he could be one of the ones to benefit from a coaching boom or from a coaching change. And now he's hot and I haven't utilized that at all. But he would be my guy to watch, but like I said, maybe a pass just given the spot and my belief that it could be a lower event game, but he's definitely a guy to keep your eye on moving forward because he's kind of looking like their guy offensively right now.
It's gonna sound counterintuitive because of what I just said about missing out on the Penguins on Tuesday night, but I actually want to go against them with the Kraken on Thursday. This one is also essentially a pick 'em with Pittsburgh as a slight underdog at -105, Seattle -115. Total of 6 for this contest. Both teams fighting for their playoff lives. Both teams have, I think, at times played a much better brand of hockey at 5-on-5 than their actual results will show. Both teams have had, just kind of weird things go forward against them. But Seattle still, I think, if you look at the past 10 games, like they're still doing a good job of tilting the ice in the right direction, and it just comes down to whether or not they finish their chances and get the saves, and I know that stuff matters quite a bit. I think that this one also sets up as a pretty tidy low event game. I don't think either one is going to want to push the pace too much, especially with Pittsburgh missing Rust and Gensel. I think that they'll probably know that right now their best way to fight back into the playoff race is by just collecting points by fighting tooth and nail to get there. So an overtime bet, not a bad look. I know Pittsburgh just went to overtime against Vancouver, so it sounds a little obvious, but I do think that Seattle has just enough of an edge at home to push me over here. But I am interested to see where this line goes because I think that both of these teams set up, like I said, pretty similarly, where a lot of modelers would just like them because of their process numbers against their actual results. So, Nick, what do you think here? Pens and Kraken.
Yeah, I lean with the Kraken. I'm with you. I've I think what the Kraken have done recently has been pretty impressive. It was really just that wild game that was pretty ugly and that really unraveled just on that 5-on-3 sequence there where they gave up two. And otherwise, recently their play's been quite good. And I think you said talking about like betting process versus results, but they're 5-4-1 in their last 10. I'd assume that probably the Kraken are profitable at 5-5, given what the schedule's been with the two wins over the Bruins there and the win over the Canucks. So I don't think it's like we need to like sell them overly hard to say they're a decent bet right now. I think their processes look pretty good. They're still a really good defensive side. The one that I kind of had circled that we played in the last game, I think Andre Burakovsky's finding his game, but as I say this, it isn't. It has just come out that he's questionable, so we'll
Yep.
see
Oh,
if he plays. Me and Tim were texting about during Monday's game about the ridiculous sequence he had where he didn't get a shot or a goal when both would have been really, really helpful for us. But I think he's starting to look more like the driver that he can be. He's starting to look a little more dangerous. I think he could kind of continue to trend upwards. He's been through a lot, right? I'm always like kind of lenient to him as a Caps fan and like seeing him at his best for so many years. But like going back to his injury last year, he was the leading scorer for the Kraken, and they need a guy like that to get going. The top line's been better, but I think he can provide more than he's shown, and it's maybe a bit of a buy low time. So if he's plus 400 again and, skates tomorrow, I think I'd probably play that. I think it's a decent spot too, right? Like the Pens, I should say too, dating back to his year, I'm not the type who rates this, but he has been a Pens killer historically too. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think that's kind of my favorite look here, or the Kraken.
Yeah, I can't bet Seattle as a favorite unless I know he's playing. They just have few pure offensive like play drivers and guys that can put the puck in the net. So I really can't get there without him. I'm pretty afraid to bet Seattle as a favorite. Look, I believe in, a lot of the underlying numbers. I think earlier in my life, I was kind of like, these nerds don't know what they're talking about, this and that, but it's impossible to watch every game, every second of every game. So you have to rely on that a little bit. But the Penguins thing, which, the underlying numbers liking them and saying that they just haven't been totally opportunistic. Like at one point though, like, can they just do this so many different times that it's like, it's just in their DNA or something? Like, they tied the game against Vancouver the other night and then immediately let up a shorthanded goal like 30 seconds later. They just bugged the hell out of me with the way they do things. And I think it's infuriating to bet on. I didn't have any action in that game, but I'm just looking at them like, thank God I didn't have the Penguins because that would have made me pull my hair out. They do these things so freaking often.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole point of why like I really believe in working with analytics in tandem with watching the games, right? You can see the Pens kind of have some loser DNA right now, but then also to defend why it matters. Like if you look at the teams that have won the cup the last, I think it's dating back to 2013. There's been one that didn't enter the playoffs top 7 in expected goals for, and it was the Caps. And that year, if you cut off the first half, they were inside of it. So it does matter. It does tend to like level off over time. But like you said, Tim, there's little things that go underrated. And the nature of breakdowns also doesn't entirely get well quantified. So I believe in using it as kind of like a guideline with the eye test. You guys know I watch a ridiculous amount of hockey. And when you know it, the Panthers are on top of most models in terms of expected goals right now, right with the Oilers. So not surprised too that matches up with the odds makers' odds on the current cup because they obviously pour a ton of money into creating their own data to make these prices.
I'm sure New Jersey fans are thrilled to see they're up there too.
Yeah. All right. And we cap off this part of the show before we get to our best bets with a real doozy, another Stanley Cup, or I should say Western Conference final preview, perhaps. The Ducks and Sharks.
In
Anaheim.
2032 and
Yeah.
2045.
Anaheim is minus 125, San Jose plus 105. Total here of 6. And I've got nothing here, but Nick, you talked about watching a lot of hockey, and if you're going to be up watching this one, and I'll give you a lot of credit, but you actually have an opinion here.
Well, I lean with the Ducks. I don't know. I thought this game opened as with the Ducks at -110. I think they deserve to be bigger favorite. I would play to -120. So we'll see what's out there. One game I didn't watch was the end of that Devils, or much of that Devils Sharks game. We got the classic first period Devils loss, and then it just all unraveled from there. I
Oh, don't
don't
worry, Nick. I got you covered. I watched that one. I
I don't know
was
if it would have mattered either. Ultimately, but I don't think Blackwood getting injured helped anything at all. And we'll see if he's ready to go in this one, but I think that could be another thing that works in the Ducks' favor. So I lean with the Ducks. I think they deserve to be a slightly larger favorite versus San Jose right now.
yeah, the Ducks are slightly less horrid than the San Jose Sharks, so I can get there. I feel like this is one of those for um, listeners of our show that may be up on a Thursday night at 10:30. Maybe you're 21 plus in college and you went to the bar and you're coming back and you need a little play. That's where I would say, yeah, man, throw a little on the Ducks. I think that's
Well, I
like,
mean, that's the other part of it with me watching these stupid games. I'd probably watch less if I was an Eastern time zone guy like you guys, right? But
no, we're
here,
certified sickos.
yeah,
We
like
choose to stay awake.
I wouldn't stay up till 12:30 to watch these, but they're just right in the peak viewing time for me.
All right. On to our best bets for Thursday night. Tim, you could go first because we already touched on the one you're gonna give out, and unfortunately, it is the Islanders.
Yeah, circling back to what I said at the top of the show, told you that it was gonna be spoiler. My best bet, finally Detroit. Look, I was way too hard on Detroit. I like watching Patty Kane there, original six team. My dad only roots for original six teams, so shout out to him. But finally the finally the Red Wings don't play an opponent that's in a horrid schedule spot. So give me the Islanders, give me a blown lead late, and give me some mean text to leave off on a Thursday night.
Yeah, that's the worst part for Mike because every time we bet on the Islanders and just end up having a loss that we're all pissed about, then we just rag on them in our chat over and over. It's almost like a way to take out some rage. So
As if he's not already
yeah, I know.
upset enough.
Sorry, Mike. And my favorite one, I think this could be one of these games. So I think Carolina's kind of in a smash spot versus Columbus, who skate tonight uh, after we record this in New York. And Merzlikins has been confirmed as the goalie for Wednesday. So I think they're kind of skating into a disaster tomorrow when they try to play Tarasov against the Hurricanes right now, who I'm still really, really high on. They're deep, they're fast, they're so aggressive on the forecheck, which I think is a big problem for two of the deep pairings on the Columbus side of things. Right now, the Hurricanes are -145 to win in regulation. I really like that. I would play it down to -160. You could just go with the puck line option too. It's +110 right now. Whatever you want. I think those are both fine. To me, we'll see how the number holds up here because we've kind of talked about how I think some of the bigger misprices this year are like some of these spots where someone's a gross favorite, but they deserve to be a significantly larger favorite. And I think this is one of those. That makes their current just money line price, which obviously I agree with as well, -230. I think they could be closer to -300. Like I really think this number is just way off right now when you put the spot together. So we'll see how it moves. Hopefully some decent numbers hold up at the time or by the time this is out. But yeah, I really think this is just underrating the spot for the Blue Jackets, who have a significant gap in goal between Merzlikins and Tarasov. Tarasov's been really bad, and he's going to face a ton of rubber versus Carolina, who should just kind of have their way with the Blue Jackets here in this game.
Yeah, the league doing no favors to Columbus here with New York, Carolina on a back-to-back as well. So I'm fully in alignment, Nick. I think it's a tall task for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I would endorse all the things that you just said. I expect them to roll.
Yeah, and I'll throw one more out there, Tim. This was just another one of these ones, and I'm sure someone's probably one of my more consistent followers are probably noticing how ridiculous this has gotten. But I've been pumping Svechnikov's tires for a while. I think he's been flying under the radar, and he still looks like himself. He scored versus Minnesota, of course. I think he follows it up here, so I kind of got my eye on that. He's out there at +185 right now. I would play that.
Yeah, this feels like we talked about those Oilers Sharks games, building a lottery ticket because of how much volume you could probably expect from Carolina here and the goaltending for both teams, frankly. Like this game has a million different pathways, and I think most of them are going to lead to uh, Carolina winning like 6-2 or something like that. So have fun building something crazy for that. My best bet comes in on the Buffalo Sabres. This is the only game we haven't touched on yet. I've had very few bets on the Sabres, despite the fact that they've been an underdog quite a bit this season. They are a plus 136 pooch in Tampa. The Bolts are minus 162, and the total here is 6.5. There's a couple reasons I like this bet. One, both of these teams are going to look to do the same thing, and we talked about this with Buffalo's game in Florida. You two like that under. The Sabres are playing some. People thought ragged on the Islanders for playing boring hockey. Like this Sabres team is just doing that right now. They are trying to shut everything down, keep things as tidy and low event as possible. And then the Lightning are in a similar predicament because when they don't have their uh, big guns on the ice, like it's just about treading water and getting to that next shift for Kucherov and Point and Hedman. So I think both of these teams look to turn this thing into a rock fight. I think that Tampa is not a team you want to back as a favorite. We saw that the other night with Philadelphia. The Lightning took money. I think a lot of that had to do with the Konechny news, but they still just were outplayed down the lineup, and that matters. So I think that with two teams looking to keep things as predictable in front of their goaltenders as possible right now, this sets up pretty well for the Sabres just to come out on top in a coin flip. So I think that this line looks a little bit too long on a Lightning team that just doesn't have the depth to justify a bet at this price. So I'm on Buffalo here, Nick.
Yeah, I can see it. I'm tempted by the under two a little bit just because Buffalo's upside is so low that I think Tampa can clean up their kind of defensive woes in this spot. And Tim made the case before the Panthers game, and the Panthers are obviously a really high event team too. So I think that really makes the case that the Sabres are kind of still a pure under team right now when you see the way that game went. I'd be interested to hear from like followers from you two what you think of the Lightning moving forward. I'm with you, Mike. I think they're still getting a lot of credit for what they've been. You look at the lineup, Stamkos isn't playing good at even strength. And like at all. He's really not making a difference. I think if they could sell him for like a ridiculous sum of things based off kind of his name power and captaining two teams to the cup, which we know is a big factor in the NHL, I would. And same thing, like people are kind of talking about buy low, spot on them ahead of the deadline. Maybe I'm an idiot to think this, but I just look at that roster and I'm like, you need to buy on like 4 things right now, and there's no assets left. So for me, I think there's more room for like the bottom to fall apart on this thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're in tough right now. I think they've got kind of a lot more roster flaws than people think. So I don't hate it with Buffalo. I don't mind the under. I think those are kind of the avenues in this game.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take the under. It's 6.5 right now as we're recording this. Buffalo, I mean, we just said it. They've been playing like an under team. And I think you look at Tampa, we might be able to sit here in our, Zoom offices here and say that they should be selling. But the formula for the Lightning is going to be a Sabres team comes to town. Let's just, run the ball and get out of here with a victory, right? It's
and they've been very
like
good
said,
at home. It should be
right.
noted.
They've been great at home.
And you say tread water and all those sort of things. Vasilevsky does his job. You score a couple on the power play and move on. So I think that is the avenue there. I want to say something about the playoffs with Tampa, Nick, after you butt in here. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think if you are gonna attack Tampa, everyone's been cooking on Hagel points, point shots, Kucherov points. I would stick with that. I know the numbers are going to remain heavily juiced, but I'd rather take my chances just that those three are the ones driving a win and kind of lay my money there if I was going to do this, then kind of look for other avenues for the Bolts right now because the other lines really just aren't looking good. So that'd be the other note I'd slide in there.
Yeah, I'm working on a little thing about teams that have implied, betting odds to make the playoffs compared to what they should do at the deadline. So if you look at Tampa Bay, they're minus 300, yes, to make the playoffs. implied probability 75%. A couple models have them also in that 75% range, and then they're 28-1 to win the cup. So I just think that general managers here, Breezeball, it's like, well, we're supposed to get in. Maybe we take the swing at Hanifin instead of selling. And I don't know which answer is right, but just trying to handicap what they might do. I've been trying to tell you that Tampa Bay was going to fall off all season long, and credit to them, they haven't. They've done enough to get into the dance. So if you're looking at this roster, you're saying, okay, one more time, this league seems pretty wide open this season. Why not, take a swing at going to get Hanifin and going the other direction? So as much as I tend to agree with you, Nick, I think from a general manager standpoint, I could perfectly see them going the other direction too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think chances are that Breezeball buys. I don't think they have many assets to do it, and I don't think they can get enough pieces to compete with. Like we've talked about this year, you look at it, there are basically 11 really legitimate cup contenders, I think. And then there's a bit of a pack at the top with like the Panthers, I think, but like pretty much down, you have to pack the Knights in there, I think. So there's 11 teams right there. The Knights are kind of the longest in the pack, I think, that could do it at plus 1,300. That's actually specifically why I don't really think the Lightning are very live this year. I think they're going to have clear holes compared to like that kind of upper pack. So I think it's really open this year, but I don't really think it's open to the wild card teams, if you know what I mean. I'll be really surprised to see like a run from kind of really anyone of the wild cards in either conference. So that's kind of the thing there. And I mean, it wouldn't be absolutely insane. I don't think, maybe I'm completely wrong here, but to see them sell Stamkos for a really good return, I think like if they could get something like that and then just try to buy and shore up the decor and kind of take their chances on both sides of things, I don't think that'd be like an insane narrative if they could get like a defender that they view as like someone to be on the team moving forward. But
It'd be a pretty stone cold move, and to see
it'd be
Stamkos
really
whiff,
bold.
to see Stamkos whiff on 2 one-timers on Tuesday night too, kind of showed me that yeah, his play has slipped, but maybe he's just in a situation where it's like, I think that my end is the time is here, that where my days might be numbered here in Tampa Bay, and not just because they didn't want to give him a big contract, but maybe he's like, screw you guys, I've had enough. Show me some respect. I got the C.
Yeah, and I think the final note I'd slide out there too with like any trade speculations that I think is so obvious, but you don't hear it that much. So much of it I think just comes down to like what prices teams are actually offering, right? Like we don't know what offers come in for Stamkos and for like a lot of these guys, and maybe some of them are all terrible, and that's why teams stand pat. Or maybe it's the opposite, and you're kind of getting something that you consider like mind blowing, and then you take it. So I think that's kind of a very relevant note ahead of the deadline.
All right. Yeah, we'll talk more deadline stuff on Wednesday for the lighter slate, and just give out some things to watch out for there. So just to recap our best bets, Tim had the unfortunate luck of picking the Islanders as his best bet. I chose the Buffalo Sabres against the Lightning as a slight dog, or as an underdog, and Nick likes Carolina in regulation to minus 160. Off the top of the show, our favorite underdogs. Once again, they're the Islanders. Once again, they're the Coyotes. And Tim was much more sensible and went with the Winnipeg Jets. So that'll do it for this week on Line Change. We look forward to seeing you, listening, or speaking to you again next week. It should be crazy with the deadline on Friday. Be sure to keep an eye on our YouTube page for our Power Plays video for Saturday slate. But until then, I'm Mike. That's Nick and Tim. Thank you for listening. Thank you for rating, reviewing, and subscribing.